This is CBC Winnipeg News.
He cared for the people. He loved the people.
A tireless advocate, just exemplary human.
She was more than just my friend. She was considered family to me.
Saying goodbye to a leader. Hundreds gather at the Manitoba Legislature, where Grand Chief Cathy Merrick lay in state today. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. She was a fierce advocate who fought for others right up until her last breath. A strong Cree woman, a wife, mother, grandmother, and for many, an inspiration. Now, an entire community is saying their final goodbyes to Grand Chief Cathy Merrick. At this hour, a procession is underway where Merrick's body is being moved from the legislature to the RBC Convention Centre. You can see chiefs, dignitaries are leading her body to the RBC Convention Centre where a wake is going to take place. CBC's Ian Fraze is at the Convention Centre tonight, and he's going to be bringing us the latest. Ian, what's been happening today?
Thanks, Brittany. I am outside the Convention Centre where mourners are starting to gather for that wake to say their goodbyes to the late Cathy Merrick. Just in the last 10 minutes, a procession with her casket has left the legislature where her body was laid to rest. Now, this is a rare honor, something that's only happened 5 previous times in the last century at the legislature. The procession is being led by 7 people on horseback who are leading marchers down the street. It's scheduled to go down Memorial, then pass on to York, where they will pass the courthouse where Merrick suddenly collapsed last week, ending off here at the Convention Centre. Earlier today, hundreds of mourners gathered at the legislature to pay their respects. Step by step, a Grand Chief who carried her people with her until her last breath is lifted up. A white casket bearing the body of Cathy Merrick, who guided the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs for 2 years, arrived at the provincial legislature to lie in state. Inside, singers carrying 2 of Merrick's headdresses led the procession up the grand staircase, where she was followed by her family, Premier Wabkanu, First Nations leaders, and invited guests. They paid their respects at a private ceremony before the public was welcomed inside. The lineup to enter the legislature was dozens deep for hours.
It is quite an honor for our people to have our own citizen lie in state in this very respectful establishment, and I know that it helps and it validates her as a leader.
The first woman to lead the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Merrick collapsed last Friday outside Winnipeg's Law Courts building. She died moments after denouncing the acquittal of a corrections officer charged in the death of a First Nations man in prison. Mourners said Merrick's strong leadership was guided by her compassion.
She always made sure that I had enough to eat, and also being like a big sister to me, she would straighten my tie or straighten my hair and made sure that there was no spots on my coat.
The chief of Merrick's home community of Pimachikamak Cree Nation said whenever the late Grand Chief took on the government, she wanted both sides to win.
She wasn't there to put anybody down or to kick anybody out.
After the ceremony, Louise Minot felt the call to drum.
In my culture, it's a sign of respect. It's a sign of honor.
She got to know Merrick over the years at gatherings, at walks. Before long, Merrick became a friend, but the Grand Chief felt differently.
She said, "Don't call me that. I'm your family now."
The wake here at the Convention Centre is scheduled to last until 1 a.m. Then on Saturday, a funeral in Merrick's home community of Pimachikamak Cree Nation. Brittany.
All right, thanks, Ian. We'll be checking back in with Ian Fraze later in the show. Meantime, a Winnipeg media outlet is apologizing for using an image of Merrick after she collapsed outside the Law Courts Friday, shortly before she died. The photo appeared on the Winnipeg Free Press website Friday afternoon with a similar one in the physical paper Saturday. We aren't showing the photo in question. It sparked backlash from the community and the Premier. The Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says it's boycotting the paper and its reporters. The outlet removed the photo 72 minutes after the AMC announcement. In an online column last night, the Free Press apologized, saying in part, "To those who were upset and traumatized by the photo, you have our sincere apology," adding to the hurt the Indigenous community has already felt from the seismic events of recent headlines was never our intention. The paper says it resolves to do better. The AMC tells CBC News there was no written communication sent to the organization or Merrick's family. It says a sincere apology should be accompanied by direct outreach to ensure meaningful dialogue and understanding. AMC says the boycott continues. The City of Winnipeg revealed this morning what it's prepared to do to help True North real estate development Portage Place Mall. That help adds to $40 million worth of grants and tax relief. CBC's Bartley Kivas reports.
The real estate wing of the company that owns the Winnipeg Jets is still working out the details of its $650 million plan to purchase and redevelop Portage Place. The city made its commitment to the project clear today. It's offering up to $14 million in property tax relief over the next 25 years, $10 million for new housing in the project, and $16 million in spending on infrastructure, including a new skywalk and a new section of Edmonton Street. Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham says the contributions are worth it.
Anybody who knows Winnipeg knows that Portage Place right now is a massive footprint in Winnipeg's downtown that is not performing anywhere near what it needs to perform to.
The province is helping out in the form of long-term leases in the medical tower. There's little political opposition. But the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, a left-of-centre think tank, is questioning whether low-income people living downtown will benefit. Molly McCracken is the Manitoba director.
What we're seeing is True North is acquiring more and more of downtown, and they've been doing that through public subsidies.
True North's plans for Portage Place include a new healthcare tower, a residential tower, the demolition of the glass atrium, and a drop-in centre. Paul Hagerman, who works for a charity with office space inside Portage Place, likes the idea of an overhaul.
Those of us who are in there as tenants are finding that maintenance is suffering a little bit. And so we're looking for new investment for the mall, even if we don't get to stay.
True North has until the end of September to pull the trigger on its option to purchase and redevelop the mall. City Council will vote this month on its package of grants. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
An emerging taxi fraud in Winnipeg swindles bystanders into helping cover a fake ride fare and then drains their bank accounts in a card skimming operation. Police say cars with fake taxi signs on their roofs drive through high traffic areas. A person acting as a passenger gets out and approaches a bystander for help. They say the taxi doesn't accept cash and asks if they can borrow their debit card to pay their fare in exchange for cash. The debit card is then skimmed and used to drain the victim's bank account. Police say its financial crimes unit is working with the city to create awareness about the fraud. Time now to bring in weather specialist Riley Lachak. And Riley, we've been talking, it feels like for weeks, about weather statements and alerts to do with all of that smoke and that haze, and really no different with that, what we're seeing outside.
No different, a lot less of a large footprint in terms of our air quality statements and alerts today, albeit another hazy one across really much of the province throughout the day today. So air quality advisory in place for Grand Rapids, The Pas, and Flin Flon. This has really considerably changed from what this was yesterday, and we are looking at much less hazy conditions as we get through the next 24 hours for sure here in southern Manitoba. Another hazy one today. These colors indicate some of our maximum smoke and haze conditions throughout the province. So as you can see, even by 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, a shift in winds out of the southeast will really allow a lot of that haze and that smoke to go further to the north. So a much clearer day really for much of the province as we head through the next 24 hours. Slim chance we could see a few scattered showers overnight. The best chance for that comes through the morning hours tomorrow. 19 degrees, your wake-up temperature tomorrow morning. A clearing sky, and then we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds again tomorrow. Albeit windy, Brittany, southeast winds 30, gusting to 50. Another hot one as well. I'll have more on when these hot conditions maybe start to break down in your long range coming up.
All right, but our warm September for now continues.
Yes, it does.
Thanks, Riley. Still ahead, a potential game changer in agriculture. A Manitoba farmer tells us how a new technology being tested on his land could shift how the industry operates, not only in the province, but across the country. More on that when we return. Stay with us. A new technology being tested in Manitoba could change the way agricultural producers fertilize their crops. A Canadian company is using water, air, and hydroelectricity to make ammonia without the use of fossil fuels. And as CBC's Mike Arsenault explains, it could shift how the agriculture industry operates.
That comes out into this one behind us, and that's where all the magic happens.
The magic Curtis Hebert is talking about is the green ammonia being made on his land. Hebert is the operator of R&L Acres. He's been farming since he was 12 and says one of the main ingredients needed for farming is ammonia.
Hydrous ammonia, as we call it, or NH3, we use that for nitrogen fertilizers. So it is the primary form of nitrogen fertilizer.
Roughly 80% of the world's ammonia is used in agriculture as fertilizer. Making it involves removing hydrogen from fossil fuels and has a significant impact on the environment. Now, a new process for making carbon-free green ammonia is being tested on Hebert's farm. He says green ammonia could save the environment while it saves him money on fluctuating fuel prices.
If I don't have to use fossil fuels, that's great. That's a volatility thing, right? If we can be off the grid, I don't have to worry about the prices of all those things.
Fuel Positive's green ammonia system uses hydrogen from water and nitrogen from the air. Those elements combined in this container using hydroelectricity, and the end result is carbon-free green ammonia.
The Canadian company invented the containerized green ammonia production system. This gives an idea of how the process works. Fuel Positive kept the container closed to keep its new technology a secret for now. CEO Ian Clifford says one of the most important ingredients in making green ammonia is using carbon-free electricity.
One of the reasons we're starting all of this in Manitoba is specifically because it's a green grid, it's low-cost electricity.
Ammonia would be about up to here.
Mario Tenuta is a professor of soil ecology at the University of Manitoba. He says making green ammonia could have a cascading effect that will appeal to major food processors and retailers.
Very enticing for them. So yeah, this technology approach is being watched very carefully by many different groups in our food system.
Having it right on site, have less problem with supply, and hopefully, remove some of the volatility in the price.
Hebert says the system is controlled remotely and won't add to his workload. All he has to do is apply it. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Sperling, Manitoba.
A plan to turn a house in an upscale Winnipeg neighborhood into an addictions recovery center can move ahead. Dozens of residents filed appeals against the proposal, but after a hearing today, city councillors denied the appeal. CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
This home on Lindenwood Drive East looks much like the others in the surrounding neighborhood. But inside, one organization hopes it can be a place for people recovering from addictions. That plan drew opposition from people in the neighborhood like Anna Yu.
We don't have enough information about the rehabilitation, like the risk assessment.
The facility's operator, Regenesis Center for Recovery, says 6 people will live there. It will cater to women and non-binary adults who identify as people of color, LGBT, and disabled. But in dozens of letters, residents voiced concerns about the proximity to a nearby school, seniors' home, and community center. Yu worries that staff will only be on site on weekdays and not overnight.
And someone maybe have mental health disability. So if those situations, we do think maybe they need to have staff to accompany those people.
Regenesis Executive Director Cindy Foster says residents at the home will have already gone through primary addictions treatment.
So we're really looking at someone that is at the end of their supervised journey to recovery. And so what we're doing is we're providing a bridge between primary treatment and reintegration back into the greater community.
The plan also drew opposition from area councillor John Orlico.
This really is setting that precedent on how we're going to go forward for all our neighborhoods. And I think the program and the location are just not properly suited.
Premier Wab Canoe weighed in on the plan and community opposition, reflecting on his own experiences with addiction.
Well, I'm somebody who's made good on a second chance to come back from addictions, so recovery is possible, sobriety and people turning their lives around is possible.
Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Students at a South Winnipeg school are braving the new school year without air conditioning. Some parents are raising concerns, worrying what could happen if the problem continues unresolved. Bonnycastle School has been without AC for 5 months now, and it's been a warm week with temperatures soaring to 30 degrees. Parents not only fear heat stroke, but wonder how it will impact their kids' ability to learn.
It was like being inside a hot yoga room. That is the level of heat in that building. We've got a situation that is at best very suboptimal, and at worst dangerous because you've got heat stroke concerns and you've got asthma attack concerns. If you have asthma, which my daughter does, the very last thing you should be doing is exposing yourself to an environment that is that hot and humid.
July, CBC spoke with the director of Karen's Child Care Centre, a daycare operating out of that same school, about their AC problems. At the time, she said the previous PC government had approved a replacement HVAC system for the building, but added those plans were put on hold by the current NDP government. At the time, they were hopeful it would be resolved by the end of summer. The Pembina Trails School Division says it's installed temporary measures for now, which includes setting up fans in every classroom. Riley's back now. And Riley, I know we had the fans going in our house because it has just been so hot. The windows were open when you can at night, but even the overnights have been pretty nice.
Even our
over the past few
overnight
days.
temperatures, you're right, our overnight temperatures have actually been closer to what our seasonal daytime high is for this time of the year. And this stretch of warm weather does look like it will continue, but there is a bit of relief if you're not a fan of high 20s, low 30 temperatures.
Okay.
So we'll get to that. I'll get to the temperature trend first up here to give you a sense of where things are headed. So as mentioned, that normal daytime high, 19 degrees, that's where a lot of our evening and overnight lows have been. That trend of hot temperatures, 28s, 27s, 29s, continues right through the next 7 days. But then we start to drop a little bit closer to seasonal, but still above seasonal for this time of the year as we head into later September. Of course, this is just one forecast model's run of what our temperatures could be doing, but gives you a bit of a sense of where things are headed here in the next week to 10 days. So expect this stretch of hot weather to continue. That hot weather continues as well, even as we head into the weekend here with temperatures close to 30. So satellite and radar, we are seeing some clouds start to build into southern Manitoba here. We have started to see things cloud over in Winnipeg ahead of, as expected, some scattered showers, even a couple rumbles of thunder here you can see in the Parkland region around Oka River, St. Rose into the Lake Manitoba Narrow, seeing a little bit of a stray thunderstorm activity right now. And this is what we can expect to continue as we head into the evening here. This is ahead of a low pressure system that is bringing some rain into parts of Saskatchewan and parts of Montana and North Dakota. That will start to slowly make its way north as we head through the overnight period. So a slim chance we could still see a few more scattered showers through the overnight period. Best chance of that comes first thing in the morning through places like Brandon, Dauphin into the Swan River region as that system makes its way north. Good chance of some showers tomorrow across northern Manitoba as that main center of low pressure makes its way further to the north. In terms of rainfall accumulation, really in Winnipeg, the Red River Valley traced to a couple of millimeters overnight tonight. This 35 in Brandon, I think a little bit high. I think we're looking at a general 5 to 10 millimeters on that western side of the province. That does quickly clear out. We're looking at 29 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Temperatures really staying in the high 20s and a little bit unsettled to wrap up the weekend, Brittany. We're looking at a good chance of showers through the later part of Sunday and a cloudy and more rainy Monday ahead next week.
All right, something to keep an eye on. Thanks, Riley. Coming up, Parliament resumes on Monday for its fall session. The latest on the Conservative Party's efforts to trigger an early vote and the challenges facing the other parties. Stay with us. The federal Liberals and New Democrats are holding caucus retreats, laying out strategy for the upcoming session of Parliament. But the Conservatives are pushing hard for an election, and the sooner the better as far as their leader is concerned. CBC's Ashley Burke has the latest on Pierre Poilievre's efforts to trigger an early vote and the challenges facing the other parties.
For the third week in a row, Pierre Poilievre's trying to throw down the gauntlet.
It's put up or shut up time.
And force an election he seems confident he'll win.
The common sense Conservatives will put forward a non-confidence motion at the earliest possible opportunity. And I'm asking Jagmeet Singh and the NDP to commit unequivocally before Monday's by-elections.
Now he's making it a double dog dare.
Est-ce que le Bloc va voter pour les Québécois?
Challenging the Bloc Québécois to take down the government by voting for it too.
On n'est pas payé à l'heure pour...
The Bloc's leader has already said he's not working for Poilievre and will do what's best for Quebec. Jagmeet Singh won't say how he'd vote either.
I'm not going to say our decision ahead of time.
But Singh did say what he thinks of Poilievre, who repeatedly mispronounces his name and won't stop calling him Sellout Singh.
He likes to insult people and call people names. I think that shows you what type of person he is.
Right now, Poilievre's call to action is going nowhere, at a time when the NDP and Liberals are both meeting with their caucuses to strategize their next moves.
We believe in Canadians.
After a summer of reflection and some Canadians and some of his own MPs calling for change, Justin Trudeau has given no signs of a new plan, but is preparing for a fierce fight.
I can't wait to continue getting into it this fall with Poilievre, whose perspective is cuts are the only way forward.
All of this unfolding on a day that felt like an election campaign. The party's leaders out in front of cameras before two high-stake by-elections on Monday. That's the same day MPs are heading back to Parliament Hill, and we'll see how soon Poilievre can take his challenge to the floor of the House of Commons and if anyone actually follows through on his dare. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
There's a housing shortage in Canada, and it's especially severe in First Nations communities. The Assembly of First Nations is calling for $135 billion in federal funding to address homelessness and overcrowding. But in Alberta, an energy company is stepping up to help ease the problem. CBC's Paula Duhatchuk has the story.
Grace Richards has done what she can to make this trailer a home, but without running water and electricity, every day brings a new challenge.
It's falling apart now, and to tell you the truth, I don't think if I had to stay here another winter, I don't think I'd be able to do it. A shower. A shower. Yeah.
Richards and her sister will soon move into pre-built homes like these ones. The oil and gas company Cenovus is spending $50 million to build homes in 6 First Nations and Métis communities.
Fundamentally, Cenovus wants to be a good neighbor in the communities that we are adjacent and working with.
It means people will get out of the, you could say, poverty situations that they are currently living in and live in more standard living with running water, with proper heating, just a warm home to live in during the winter.
According to Statistics Canada, Indigenous people are more likely than non-Indigenous people to live in crowded housing and homes that need major repair. Here, it's a problem despite being a stone's throw from oil sands facilities that generate billions in annual revenue.
There's this massive crisis in Indigenous housing in the middle of some of the wealthiest piece of land in the world. It just doesn't make any sense.
This investment won't solve that crisis, but it's a start, he says.
It represents a realization on the part of the more progressive and innovative Canadian companies that their long-term viability relies on a deep and profound connection with Indigenous communities.
Cenovus says it will build 35 homes in this community by the end of next year. This is your backup stove?
That's my backup stove, yes.
As for Grace Richards, she'll be among the first to move into a new home. She's looking forward to having a brand new kitchen in time to host Christmas dinner. Paula Duhatchuk, CBC News, Conklin, Alberta.
Hurricane Francine has strengthened into a Category 2 storm. Francine made landfall late this afternoon along the Louisiana coast south of Baton Rouge. People have been stocking up on gas, water, and other supplies as the storm barreled towards the U.S. Gulf states. Winds picked up to around 155 kilometers per hour as it approached shore. Officials in New Orleans are warning the powerful storm could spawn tornadoes, as well as heavy rain, flooding, damaging winds, and dangerous storm surge. Francine is the fourth hurricane since mid-June. At least 179 people are dead after Typhoon Yagi tore its way through Vietnam. In the capital, Hanoi, a local river overflowed its banks, forcing the evacuation of thousands. Rescue teams are using boats filled with emergency supplies to reach villages stranded by high water and landslides. Yagi is the most powerful storm to strike Asia this year. It's been walloping northern Vietnam for several days, ravaging infrastructure, triggering flash floods and evacuation orders for thousands of people. The government says 145 people are missing. Canadian families involved in adopting a child from China have suddenly been left in limbo. Beijing has abruptly banned most foreign adoptions. As CBC's Ithel Musa reports, the move is creating an emotional strain for adopters and for some who've already been adopted.
Michel Leblanc's family moved to a bigger home in Trois-Rivières in anticipation of a new family member. They had already adopted 2 children from China. Now their hopes of adopting another are dashed.
La façon dont ça nous a été annoncé.
The way it was announced to us without any consideration, it's inhumane, she says. Leblanc found out on social media that China was ending its international adoption program. It's a lot of financial stress. It's emotional stress, she says, because you have to be able to tell the grandparents who won't have a baby. China's foreign ministry didn't provide an explanation. Births in the country have been plummeting for decades because of China's one-child policy. That policy ended in 2016. Chinese couples are now allowed to have up to 3 children.
Population dynamics in China is always as much a demographic issue as it's a political one. Domestic adoption or international adoption is inevitably fraught. It touches on some of the most fundamental questions of human conditions, like who gets recognized, who gets counted.
In Canada, adoptees from China are also trying to process what this news means.
It does feel like an end of an era, and maybe in some ways that's good because if there's less of a need for children to be adopted.
Rottenberg hopes China's new rule on foreign adoptions will not make it harder for adoptees like her to find their birth parents. While for Michel Leblanc, the dream to expand her family, it's hard to kill the hope in your heart, she says, but at the given moment, as humans, there are limits to the grief one can endure. The federal government says it's working closely with its contacts in China to review the country's new policy. Ithel Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
Ceremonies were held today to mark the 23rd anniversary of the 9/11 attacks in the U.S. On this day in 2001, nearly 3,000 people were killed when terrorists crashed jets into the World Trade Center in New York, a field in Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon. Several political leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris and former U.S. President Donald Trump, were in attendance.
Your memory lives on in our hearts, and your family misses you deeply.
David Michael Barkway, Kenneth William Besnicki, Jane S. Beatty.
I would like to take this time to thank everyone who really keeps their word to never forget.
Many dangers, toils, and snares.
We have repaired the damage to this building, but we cannot repair the damage to your hearts.
Todd M. Beamer.
My mom, Cece Louise Ross Lyles.
Still ahead, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris face off for more than 90 minutes in last night's presidential debate, a debate over policy that was intercut with personal attacks from both candidates. More on the debate and reaction when we come back. The race for the White House is kicked into high gear after last night's presidential debate. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump clashed on issues from abortion to the economy and immigration. Democrats and even some Republicans believe Harris came out on top, but Trump says he won the night. CBC's Chris Reyes looks at what voters are saying the day after.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
It didn't take long for both candidates to claim victory after the 90-minute debate.
This was my best debate. I thought it was very good. I thought she was very weak on foreign policy. She was very weak on the border, and I'm very happy.
I think that we think today was a good day, and it kind of was. But we have 56 days to go, and guys, we're still the underdogs in this race. It's tight.
The debate touched on a wide range of issues: the economy, immigration, foreign policy, and reproductive rights. But it was short on policy details and heavy on the personal hits.
She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. So many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace.
One notable endorsement came right after the debate, an Instagram post from the pop star Taylor Swift.
We're honored to have the endorsement of Taylor Swift because I think that Taylor Swift saw what millions of Americans saw last night on the stage. She saw Donald Trump refuse to say if he would sign a national abortion ban. She saw him continue to demean America, and that's not the kind of America that Taylor Swift wants to be in.
From Republicans, the overwhelming criticism that the moderators went easy on Kamala Harris and that Harris wasn't held accountable for President Joe Biden's record.
She spent her time trying to goad Donald Trump, trying to taunt Donald Trump. But what Kamala Harris didn't do is talk about policy to impact the lives of the American people.
While it's voters who will decide who won the debate, some analysts say Trump's angry outbursts gave Harris the upper hand.
I think Kamala Harris won the debate. She was able to trip Donald Trump up, keep him on the defensive, basically from the start when she essentially forced him to shake her hand. She set the rhythm and the tempo of the debate, and she knocked Trump off his game from the start.
No word yet on whether there will be a second debate between the two, though other networks, including Fox News, have made it clear they want to host one. One debate that's confirmed is happening this October between the VP candidates, J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Well, there were many eyes on the debate last night, including Emily Mann and Aidan Peters. They're members of the Youth Parliament of Manitoba. It's an organization that holds model parliamentary sessions where members debate one another on hot political topics. They spoke with Information Radio's Marcy Marcusa this morning.
Well, I wanted to watch because I think this is an issue that affects us all. America is our biggest trade partner. America is the country we share the biggest border with. America is like our biggest cultural importer and exporter. And what happens in America is going to affect us here, whether it be jobs, whether it be tariffs, whether it be like anything. America, we are so ingrained with them.
And how about you, Emily? Why did you want to watch last night?
Well, the United States of America holds a great model for how a lot of our own countries can be run. Some of the topics that were discussed last night are topics that Canadians that we're worried about in the upcoming election.
Can I stop you there? Well, tell me which ones you're thinking of when you say some of the topics, you know, we should be leaning into because you're worried about them here too.
Well, I think a lot of what we see on social media right now is a great opposition towards Trudeau. So we might have a conservative government next year. So I know at least people my age are definitely really worried about immigration and especially abortion. It might not be that big of a problem here, but who knows, maybe somewhere down the line, because we're so closely related with the United States, that might be a future for young women and people that can carry children somewhere down in the future.
Mm-hmm. We just heard that, obviously, the exchange about some of those details last night. What were some of the standout moments for you last night, Aidan? What'd you cringe at or remark at or lean into to want to know more? What were some of the standout moments?
This isn't a particular moment, but I saw Trump softening his stance on a lot of issues, and I think that's because he's starting to realize he's becoming the political loser here. And you saw it with something like abortion. He was no longer saying, oh, abortions shouldn't be allowed. He was starting to say, oh, the people should get to choose, and we should make states go vote. Other standout moments for me were just like the blatant lies and antagonisms from Trump still. saying things like immigrants were eating dogs and cats, saying things like they were killing babies after they were born. Those were some huge standout moments for me.
Yeah, he didn't give a clear answer on whether or not he would put in a federal ban on abortion, which is in his plan 2025, and that's what he was pressed on that clip, that he didn't clearly answer that. He put it state to state as it is. How about for you? What were the standout moments, Emily?
I'll definitely agree with that first point that Aiden made. I think that Kamala had really stood out when she was talking about her own policies. While they were still a little bit vague, and for certain points, I'm still not entirely sure where she stands on that, just because of the vague language she uses. Trump definitely has a platform of just being opposite whatever Kamala says, which is really interesting when you're trying to stand your own ground on a debate stage. Mm-hmm. A little disappointing, but you can't expect way too much from him right now.
I was going to ask you how you would describe the debating styles of each of the candidates last night, but knowing a little bit about debating, Donald Trump didn't really debate, because it's hard. Debates are supposed to be all about sort of outlining something and bringing, backing up with facts. So I found it difficult to sort of analyze, because there were a lot of lies last night. I don't know about the two of you in terms of trying to follow this as a debate.
I even found that it's not even just the lies. I found that Trump is just hard to follow. He strings together buzzwords, and it's just like abortion this, fracking this, illegal aliens that, and it becomes this tornado of just buzzwords, and it's gobbledygook. It's not debate. It's not really anything. It's just some old person stringing together words.
What could they have learned from the two of you in terms of your experience debating? You were saying you were waiting for more substance.
Yeah, I have to agree on that point as well. I feel like when I'm listening to Trump speak, I'm like walking through a tornado and things are just flying at me as they come. I also found it extremely hard to follow his speech patterns and what he was going to bring up next, because he would finish a point and then bring something new in. I found that he couldn't really use his time effectively, because he would constantly interject, or when it was his turn to speak, he wouldn't be speaking on the current issue or topic at hand. He would be going back to what was said previously and bringing it back just so he can get his last punches in. But honestly, I don't think it would be that worth listening to the ones that he keeps bringing back, because if you can't use your time effectively, then what does it really matter? I think he could really benefit from, if he's going to go on a trail of multiple things at once that are similar, he could really signpost, which is a technique in debate that we use, where you're clearly stating your points and then you go through them in order.
Riley's back now. Riley, this is my favorite part of the program every day, because you tell me what I'm going to be wearing or what I need to wear the next morning as I take the pup out for a walk.
We're looking at another comfortable morning.
Okay.
I will say, though, that we are expecting some showers to roll through overnight. Could see some of that lingering into the early morning, more so to the west.
So maybe a hat?
So, yeah, I do the hat tomorrow morning.
All right.
Yeah. Here's your dog walking forecast. We'll break it down for you. This is Roofy. Thank you, Percival, for sending this picture. And talkback at cbc.ca is where I'll be waiting for your pictures to come into the inbox. 19 degrees tomorrow morning. As I showed you earlier in the show, this is usually our normal daytime high for this time of the year. So another hot day on the way tomorrow. Albeit today, we barely got over 21 degrees. We're a little bit off the mark in terms of my forecast high of 24, but back up to above seasonal as we head through the afternoon tomorrow. 29 degrees, 27 by the evening. So look, big picture here. Here is some of that instability that's working its way through Montana, into North Dakota, and into Manitoba and Saskatchewan. But this down here is what is Hurricane Francine that has now made landfall off the Louisiana coast. And you can see in the last 10, 15 minutes or so here, that has now downgraded back down to a Category 1 after making landfall as a Category 2. Sustained winds now down to 140 kilometers an hour. Again, this is a pretty quick evolving situation. Of course, with the storm surge, the risk of flooding, heavy rains, and high winds across parts of the U.S. Gulf Coast. Our weather, expecting some showers to roll through overnight tonight through the western side of the province. For us in Winnipeg and into the Red River Valley, this is more like a chance of some scattered showers overnight tonight. 13 tonight in both Brandon and Dauphin. Single-digit lows, 3 degrees tonight in Thompson. Seasonal low in Thompson, 2 degrees for this time of the year. So pretty seasonal for this time of the year, even though it does seem a bit cool. 11 tonight in the Pas and Flin Flon. So here, if we time this out hour by hour tomorrow, some of that scattered shower, some of that light rain that I mentioned earlier, making its way through the lunch hour, through places like Grand Rapids and Norway House, making its way a little bit further north through the day tomorrow. Starting with a good chance of some rain through Swan River and Dauphin first thing in the morning. That does clear out. Then we're back to a mainly sunny sky throughout the afternoon. 21s through the afternoon through Brandon, up to 27, 28s. 30 in Emerson and Brittany. We're looking at high 20s and sunshine through northwestern Ontario as well.
All right. Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
After the break, we'll return to the RBC Convention Centre, where mourners are gathering to say goodbye to Grand Chief Kathy Merrick.
Here's a look at your 7-day forecast now. I'm calling it a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow, although by the time we even reach the lunch hour tomorrow, we're back to a mainly sunny sky and 29 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Southeast winds 30 gusting to 50 through both Thursday and Friday. We'll see a bit of cloud building in once we get to later Friday once again. Some showers overnight Friday into Saturday, a high of 27 for your Saturday. Then we have a better chance of some showers coming later Sunday into Monday. Still 29s and 28s for forecast highs and 27 by the time we get to next Wednesday, and mainly sunny as well. Here's a couple of photos of the hazy sun. Jeff shooting this one in Brandon, and another that was shot in Carmen by Dennis from all of that haze and smoke yesterday. You can always send your pics to talkback@cbc.ca, Brittany.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, it's been an emotional day for hundreds of people who stood in line to pay their respects to Grand Chief Kathy Merrick. The 63-year-old was a fierce advocate who broke down barriers in positions long dominated by men. She inspired people to push for equality, and today the memories continue to pour in. CBC's Ian Fraze is at the Convention Centre tonight where a wake is underway. Ian, tell us about the day.
As you point out, Brittany, a real emotional day here. Moments of song and sorrow were heard. The late Kathy Merrick lying in state at the Manitoba legislature. Now, this is a rare honor, something that's only happened in the legislature 5 previous times in the last century. It started this morning with her casket, led by song, carried by honorary pallbearers being brought into the legislature. Behind her, members of Merrick's family, and Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew and First Nations leaders. Then inside the legislature, the procession went up the grand staircase to a private room where a ceremony was held. Then in the afternoon, members of the public got their chance to pay their respects. The lineup outside the legislature was dozens of people long for much of the afternoon. Then just before 6 p.m., a procession left the legislature, led by people on horseback, went south on Memorial, then on to York, passing by the courthouse where Merrick suddenly collapsed last week. That procession ended off here at the Convention Centre, where a wake is being held. That's scheduled to last until 1 p.m. Now on Thursday, Merrick's body will be flown to her home community of Pimachikamak, Cree Nation. A wake will be held. Then on Saturday, a funeral service. This is all for a woman who fought tirelessly for Indigenous people, for their rights to be respected, and was a prominent voice in the calls to search a landfill for the remains of 2 First Nations women. Brittany.
All right, thanks so much, Ian. Well, Tuesday night, hundreds of people held candles during a vigil in her memory outside the law courts. There was drumming and a rich smell of sweetgrass. Tonight, we leave you with a last look at the Grand Chief. And while her life and legacy continue, it's her hugs many say they'll miss the most. Good night.